everybody.
Meeting called to order at 7:01 p.m. Okay, regular board meeting. The district digitally records the audio portion of the meetings. The recorder is located in the front of the board scribe. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. As a community service, Pacifica Community Television records and broadcasts meetings. Approval of the minutes of December 12th, 2018. It is recommended that the board approve the minutes of December 12th, 2018 regularly. It's an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'm sorry. I so motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Approval of the agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0. Thank you.
Let's see. And communications. This portion of the agenda is available to the public to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 3 minutes. LSEA? CSEA?
Nothing at this time.
People wishing to address the board? Nicole?
This will not take 3 minutes. But, so I'm really here to thank the Pacifica Lions Club, and I just wanted you all to know that because like last April, I wrote a grant and I asked for some funding for our social play group at Lindenmar Educational Center. And then in maybe June, I got a letter, and they had granted it. So they gave us $400, and we were able to purchase new puzzles, new games, a kitchen that was not that easy to put together, by the way, a lot of art supplies, just, fun things that preschoolers like. It makes a difference if the puzzle has all the pieces instead of is missing one at the very end. So it was really nice of them. Michelle Pym and I had a really fun time ordering it all, and then it all came, and it's just been really, really nice, and the kids have really, really enjoyed it, and I just really, really want everybody to know that I'm giving the Lions Club a huge shout out and a huge thank you. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay. Correspondence? No. Board Superintendent Communications.
Want me to start? Am I in hot seat now? Okay.
You are.
Okay, well, since we were closed down for a couple weeks, not a lot since the last time, had the Cabrillo and Valamar band concert. They went really well. They held it at IBL in the winter concert, and it was very well attended. The multipurpose room was full to the gills for 2 different programs. And then I went to there was a concert actually at every school, but at the Cabrillo 3 through 5 music concert, that's Mark Underhagen, and that was really cute. The kids were showing what they had been learning and sang several songs and so forth, the 3rd through 5th grade. And then, let's see, about an hour ago, the work study facilities. Facilities vol work study. I think you all attended.
Yes. So before the break, I stopped by Ocean Shore and went to their Winter Bazaar, which is one of their big fundraisers they do, not only for the school, but for community outreach. giving money to Pacificans Care, and it's a big event on that campus, having been there 15 years. A lot of times the parents, buy these kits and donate them, and then they come in and work on the kits with the children, and then they come back and they buy the finished product. So it's a big undertaking for those parents, and a lot of teachers even come back and donate things, so that looked like it was very successful. And then over the winter break, I read How Schools Work by Arnie Duncan, former U.S. Secretary of Education under Obama, talking about the failures and successes of U.S. schools. And I have to say, after reading it, I didn't find there was anything particularly surprising, and it might just be because he outlines everything we talk about every month. More money for schools, we need to support the teachers better, we need to pay them better, we need to support special ed. But I thought it was a good book if you know of anyone who says, well, why aren't the schools doing better? I might get it for my mom, because she's, comparing how it was when I went to school, and that's the last time she was really involved, and so now there's a little disconnect. So anyway, I think it's a good book, as I said, for if you want to suggest something for people who are a little bit maybe uninformed. It kind of gives a good outline of what we need to do to better support our staff and our students.
I'll pass. I don't have anything on my list.
I have almost nothing. I'm very duplicative of what's been said before. I attended the 3 through 5 music concerts at Cabrillo and also at Sunset Ridge, so I covered Cabrillo. We overlapped with Sunset Ridge. Mark Unbehagen is doing some incredible work. So I think we should all be very thankful that he's there. The kids truly looked like they were enjoying themselves. He also, in addition to the live concert, he also did a video of these exercises that he does with the kids, where he gives them 50 minutes and a set of percussion instruments, and they have to compose a song. And so, and then the compositions get voted on, and then he played a large part of these music events were looking at the winners, and it was really incredible, some of the compositions that the kids were putting together. So they'd be, anywhere from 2 to 3 or 4 students all playing their composition. And so anyway, I'm just really happy that I was able to attend that. That's about it. It was I know something else was going on, but I can't think of what. So.
Well, I've been gone for 18 days, making the trip for my daughter to go to college. But along the way, I did have some conversations when I was in Minnesota. I was talking with my friend's son, who's a sophomore, and it's one of the top-rated high schools, and they still have the same problems that we have here. Also, when I was in Omaha, this past year, I have a sister who's a teacher, and she said that they've had to do budget cuts across the board. They got rid of all of their vice principals. And so I guess I was just feeling like this was happening in California, but it's not. It's, I'm sure Jesse knows there's different things that are going on all over, so, but otherwise, I've just been gone.
Last night I went to the Early Learning Partners at Sharp Park Golf Course, where there are Pacifica preschools and then some of our early elementary teachers, and it was facilitated by a science education professor at San Francisco State. It was a great evening, facilitated by Hilder Carlin and a Silicon Valley Community Foundation grant that we received. And other than that, we've just been here and working.
District business. District goals. The district values the goals provided in our Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more of the goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our agenda online public page or by visiting the district website www.pacificasd.org under District Information Board of Trustees. Parcel Tax Oversight Committee Annual Report, Goal Operations Governance. Josie.
Thank you. I want to thank Richard Zaromsky, the chairperson for the Parcel Tax Committee, who's here tonight to give a report. We did meet in October, and he's going to give you a summary of our meeting and our report. And you've been on the committee since the inception, since the first parcel tax, so thank you very much, and thank you for being the chairperson.
You're welcome. Thank you, Richard Zaromsky, current chair of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee. That's right, Josie. I was looking at the notes that we had from the last meeting, and this has been started with Measure L in 2008, then Measure N, and then now Measure D. And yes, I've been on since 2008. I have the twins that are graduating from 8th grade from Ocean Shore in a few months, and a 6th grader. So we're still heavily involved in the school district, and I plan to stay on as long as I can because I think that it's really valuable to the district and to the kids. And I guess at the moment I'm the Ocean Shore representative. So just for background, the Independent Oversight Committee is made up of two groups. The first group is a representative from each of the different schools in the district. I'm the Ocean Shore representative. I actually started out in the other group, the community representatives, of which there are 7 right now. I started out, I guess my kids were only 3 years old or something like that. So I was a community representative, and then when the Ocean Shore person moved on and my kids were in kindergarten, I moved into that role. We had a meeting, like Josie said, on October 16th, and what we do every year, and I think I've been here multiple years now, I've been chair for a couple of years, is we look at the expenditures of the parcel tax monies as set forth in the ballot measure. There's a independent citizens oversight committee that's looking at how those parcel tax monies are spent every year. And there's a little over $1 million every year, and I think you guys probably all have my wonderful report that Josie prepared after our meeting as an attachment. But I think that the big things to look at are the Parcel Tax Committee really does look at each specific expenditure and tries to make sure that they are in line with the ballot language. I mean, that was our charging orders, was to make sure that the monies are being spent as the voters said they wanted, and that's what we do. It doesn't take very long most of the time because they're lumped into several big categories. So we're not talking about down to the $10. We're talking about big numbers here. And if we go to the parcel tax report for July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, the actuals, and you have them in front of you, it says that we had 1.288, oh there it is, $1.288 million parcel tax funds from 2017, 2018, plus a little bit left over from the prior year. The majority of the money at the moment is being spent to support teacher salaries, which is one of the big things that folks in Pacifica wanted. They wanted to make sure we retained high-quality teachers, and you have to be able to pay those teachers to keep them here, so that's a big goal of the parcel tax money right now. See, there's 5 other items on there. Most of these don't change. They change a little bit over the years as requirements have changed, as budgets have changed. But for the most part, there's also teacher support functions, counseling, which I think is a big thing that people are really appreciating in the district now. I know our school is very appreciative of that. Library media technician is funded. Outdoor education, so that every 5th grader in the entire district goes and doesn't have to worry about the cost. And the school gardens is a small expenditure, but it's something nice for the families. It's something different to get the kids outdoors, learning in a different environment. As you can see, our expenditures were a little bit less than, and the Parcel Tax Committee did approve all these expenditures in line with the ballot language for the year. There's a small balance that's going to roll over to next year of about $16,000. The next slide shows the projections for next year. These are not actuals, but projections at this point, because, all the, I guess all the taxes haven't been collected yet, right? I guess, not quite yet, and I guess in April. So, so these are just projections, and you can see again, from the expenditures, it's pretty similar to what was set forth for last year. The one difference being there's the math combo support, because there was extra money. That, again, it's a great resource for our schools when we find something that's really worthy of supporting in the school district and we have the extra money, then we can use those parcel tax dollars to help out. The last slide in my packet is just a quick summary of of test scores, and this was reviewed by the parcel tax committees to really show that there's progress being made. The money's not just supporting the teachers, but those teachers are actually they're teaching our students, and the scores and the district is getting stronger. And I think that was the message that was sent to us during our parcel tax meeting back in October. It definitely says there's been changes. You can, obviously, I'm not going to read all of this. You've probably seen it before anyway, but you can see there's been some significant changes over time, from the previous year, this year, and I'm sure going forward, thanks to the citizens that have that voted for the parcel tax. So that's my quick and dry summary as I stand up here, a little bit wrinkled and wet from being outside tonight. But does anybody have any questions? I know that Dr. Olson was there. I think that was your first time at one of our meetings. I'm sure you had as much fun as the rest of us. And Ms. Bretta was there as well. So I don't know if you have any questions for me. I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
So first of all, thank you so much for all of your dedication and all the time that you spent doing this. I had helped out with one of these parcel taxes, so renewals, that is. So,
right.
But thank you for administering it, or helping administer it. My only question here is when I looked at the actuals and then compared them to the projections, one thing that leapt out at me was that the number of teachers has gone down from 8 to 7, despite there being approximately $20,000 more that you're projected being available, and $10,000 more that you've put into teacher salaries. So are you trying to be conservative just in case the teacher compensation goes up, or what's going on?
I was going to say I would address that to Josie, because we only approve the expenditures afterwards. The district sets the priorities for them.
Yeah, their role is to approve that the expenditures are in line with the ballot language. And so, yeah, right now it's just a projection based on what the revenues are and based on where the other programs are, because your counseling program is always getting a little bit larger with step and column, in health benefit increases, in retirement increases, and so is the other category. So right now it's a projection, a conservative projection that we will, hopefully will end with more than just $1,000 when we close the books this year. Does that make sense?
Well, my question was really about you're projecting that we're going to have one fewer teachers, despite spending $10,000 more on teacher salaries.
It's not exact, because it's really the dollar figure, and then we don't have the exact teachers identified, so it's really an average, and then taking that average and saying, how much FTE is it? And it's not really 7 or 8, it's sometimes in between. It's not an exact figure.
Totally understood.
Yeah.
It's just something that leaps out at you a bit, because obviously it's the highest ticket item on there.
Yes.
And if you make the contention that, look, all of the increases in achievement have been due to what we spent before, now you're spending evidently more on fewer teachers than.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's fine.
It's a good point. We could probably make it more like 7.5 or 6, whatever. We could make it more of an exact.
It's just more of a face validity thing than anything else, because if you have somebody that's very conservative that's out there saying, oh, they're wasting all of our money, that's something that they can point to. So.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, well, until next year at this time.
Thank you so much.
And you say it's a big commitment. I feel like we used to meet a couple times a year when it first started. When it first started, we used to meet a couple times a year, just getting things going. But now we're a well-oiled machine now, so we only meet once in the fall to approve the prior year's expenditures. And if anybody wants to meet more, just let me know. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Drive safely.
All right. Approval of the 2017-18 audit reports, and this is a goal under operations. Josie?
Thank you. The auditors completed the audit report. They visited us twice, once in April and then again in September when we closed our books. And Daniel is here to present, so I won't go into much detail, but they did complete the audit report and submit it to the state controller. We did provide it to our audit committee members, Andrea and Kathy, for their review, and thank you for being on that committee year after year. I don't think you have any questions on it this time.
No.
So I'll let Daniel present. Thank you.
I'll just take this out here. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Garacachea. I'm with Siobhan Associates. I believe all of you recognize me from last year, maybe. I've been with Siobhan for 5 years now, and I'm here to, of course, present the audit report. I'd like to start with a summary of the GASB implementation. So GASB 75, which replaces GASB 45, similar to the implementation of GASB 68. Which its primary objective is to improve accounting and financial reporting for other post-employment benefits, otherwise known as OPEB, which also improves information provided about the financial support for the district's OPEB plan. Some financial highlights for last year would be that the net position decreased by $11.9 million. To a deficit net position of $2.1 million, which is largely due to GASB 75 implementation. That would be the prior period adjustment, and that adjustment was $7 million. So it's quite large, yeah. Changes to long-term debt in terms of OPEB liability was a $7.7 million increase, and pension liabilities, GASB 68, that was an increase of $5.1 million this year. Okay. As for the fund statements, GASB 75 and 68 do not have an immediate impact on the funds, and total fund balance for all governmental funds decreased by about $625,000. The general fund's ending fund balance was $8.5 million. Let's see here. Available reserves for the general fund was 6% of total general fund outgo, which met the recommended reserve for a district of this size, and the recommended reserve is 3%. You mentioned the SEO and reports, right? No, the uploading to the COE and everything. We also just today for the single audit, we uploaded the FAC submission today as well. That's the Federal Audit Clearinghouse.
So. I just might chime in. So the things that he's reporting on are the other post-retirement benefits, which I don't normally report to you throughout the year on the interim and the budgets. It's something that, because of financial reporting, the auditors have to include. So when you're hearing all these things, it is confusing. It's something that we don't normally reflect in our budget. It's in the audit report. Right?
Yeah. Don't worry, it confuses everyone. I promise.
He's combining funds, and he's reporting on a generally accepted accounting principles basis, which includes the land and the assets, which I normally don't present to you when we do our budgets.
That's correct. Yeah. And as for the audit results, there were no exceptions in the audit opinion, so we have an unmodified opinion. There were no material weaknesses noted, and no significant pass-on adjustments. So, as well as no disagreements with management yet. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I'm sorry. Does that make you nervous?
Yeah, we need to.
Gotta have a little bit, right? Well, that's it for my presentation. So if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, I'll take any of those now. Alrighty. Then that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful out there, by the way. It took me 3 reroutes to get here. Yes, exactly.
thank you for presenting.
So this is an action item, so do we have a motion to approve?
One motion to approve?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
2019-20 school calendar. This falls under LCAP goal number 2, operations. Maria?
Yes, so we have spent the last few months working with LSEA and CSEA and the Board of Trustees on coming up with a proposed calendar for the 2019-2020 school year. And we are very pleased to provide you with our final recommendation for your consideration.
So this is an action item. Does anybody have any questions beforehand? Any discussion? Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes.
Second?
A second?
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you. Thank you.
School Accountability Report Card, SARC. Goal Governance. Will?
Okay, so what you have, or what you have seen and have in front of you, or should have, is the school accountability report cards for each of our schools. And they were, if you can remember, it's hard to remember. Sometimes the break makes you lose memory. But if you can remember, we had presented these SARCs before. There was only one missing piece, that was the fit section. That fit section is now inclusive in the SARCs that you have in front of you. And so it's complete. We had gone over the SARCs for in all the other areas. So it's recommended to approve the SARCs.
So this is an action item. Does anybody have any questions or discussion first?
So there was some stuff on the fit parts that really wasn't part of our facility master plan. I was kind of surprised that I didn't hear any of the words of the things that were in poor condition at the schools that were going to be part of our plan.
So we actually got the fit information from the study that they did, and there's plenty that's for. I think that we didn't focus on that in this particular piece, but the items that are in that category is something that we want to address in that tier 1 category.
I mean, I had the exact same comment I went through all the SARCs, and I just wanted to make sure that anything that was there as a fair, because you read fair and then you read the description, and the description is less rosy than the fair, to say the least.
There was, we were working with facilities and George in particular, because he was taking from that report and basically they were translating it into the fit format that's on the SARC. So there was a little bit back and forth, but we wanted to make sure that the information on the SARC was authentic, so we translated it the best we could.
Sure. So I mean, but the point is that the point that I made on my write-up here was just I wanted to make sure that the facilities master plan that we have in place addresses everything that was listed as a fair on the fit. And it sounds like that's the case.
Right, it just was,
Okay.
in our limited time, we
Sure,
focused
sure.
on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Well, I had a quick question because I'm not sure if I completely understand. When you get down to the expenditures per pupil on the SARC, right? And it has comparisons of the school's per pupil expenditure to not only the district as a whole, but to the state. I wasn't able to replicate those numbers at all. And so I'm just wondering if I've got it wrong or how these are being calculated. And I don't want to hold up the, any passing of these or approval of these, but I guess I would like to kind of understand. I can follow up with you at some other point. The other thing is that the headers on these tables, so it's the expenditure per pupil and school site teacher salaries, right? It says, fiscal year 2016-17. So I assume that we're actually doing a SARC for a later year, or is this actually the 16, 17, and it's lagged that much?
So the information that's listed, if it indicated a 16, 17, then that was for the 16, 17 year.
Okay, so it's lagged.
That's because a lot of the funding is kind of delayed, so if you're trying to get actuals,
Yeah.
you have to actually know what was actually spent in those times. The other thing is there is a challenge, and this is also a challenge on the LCAP, when we go through the LCAP piece, is this idea of what funding, if you have general support status is coming to the site that is centrally funded, but how do you divide that up if it's supporting
Multiple sites.
multiple sites?
Sure.
So there were instances where the funding source was district funded. And so they'd be district funded under, base or a funding source, but there wasn't like a percentage of it, like, one of the specialists, right? The specialists supported a number of schools, so there wasn't like, 1/5 of the specialist is with this school, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes the numbers.
It's difficult to prorate out
Yeah.
a person's time from.
It's almost
across different
in a
sites.
way easier to do estimates for the next year because you can kind of see that, but
Okay.
when you come out, when you're fleshing out the actual.
But all these data are based on our payroll data here, right? It's not like grabbing the data from what we report to CD and pulling it back down from the J90 or anything like that. Okay, well, I'd like to set up a time to go over this stuff with you at some point. The only other thing that I wanted to just discuss here for a second is the Starks have a lot of rich information that we should all pay attention to. And if you go through some of the proficiency rates that are listed there were some pretty astounding results. So I think we all know that we have to work harder to improve proficiency amongst our special education and English learner populations. But some of the other things is if you look at the differential in proficiency rates between male and female students on the ELA and sometimes on the math, it's pretty crazy. And specifically what I noted was our male students look like they're doing significantly worse on the ELA assessments than our females. And I don't know if this is a common thing or if it's just something that's happening in our district, but it's definitely worth taking a look at and trying to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah, if you also noticed with the male-female thing, if you notice at specific grade levels,
Yeah.
there's more of a divergence between the female and the male at specific grade levels. So yeah, I've kind of dove down deep into that data, the male-female, because usually you don't look at that. You look at student groups and
Sure.
the male-female thing kind of spells out in the SARC because it literally divides it up. Like it shows you that data. So yeah, it is interesting, and I don't know.
Okay, we should look at it because it's pretty. If you just look at those contrasts, that it's very stark, and there's something there.
Well, I just became aware of it this week because I read an article in the New York Times about the gender difference that girls consistently do better than boys, especially as they get older, is that girls do better than boys, but the one group where they were similar were Asian boys and girls at the elementary level.
Okay.
Brought that to my attention.
So it's not just us.
No, it is not.
No, it's
national.
it's interesting. I mean, I can even talk to you about placement in high schools and about placement in classes based on gender. It's very stark.
Okay.
And like students that get in, students that don't get into certain private institutions, the same thing.
Okay.
It's interesting. It is.
So do we want to buck the trend?
Yes, of course. Go boys.
So this is an action item, and just.
I had one other thing that I wanted
Okay.
to mention, and I was hoping that Ellie would have stayed for the SARC things, because Sunset Ridge only had one suspension. Was that for last year? I'm trying to think, 17, 18, and Sunset Ridge is one of the schools that, used to suspend a lot of kids, and only having one for that year is terrific. And maybe Ellie should kind of share what she's doing to keep kids at school instead of sending them home when they're bad. It's that suspensions don't work very well because of that. And And she's just, you know, she's beat all the rest of the schools hands down, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that you're saying that, because that was, you know, like, we were looking at that closely last year as far as suspension rate, and our suspension rate as a whole has gone down. Well, it went down 2 years ago to last year, and now it's basically maintained for another year at that low rate, and comparatively across the county, we're doing extremely well.
Yeah.
So, just one last note on, thanks for bringing up the suspensions. There's certainly an opportunity to improve at IBL. So the suspension rate there is about twice the rate of the district as a whole. It's par with the state average, according to the SARC. But if we gonna take our own district as the thing, so there, you know, there's something going on there. There's some opportunity to improve there.
Even more so because they have full-time VP and full-time counseling,
Yeah.
so.
So this is an action item. Do I have a motion to approve?
It's twice tonight.
You gotta get each other a
Go
Coke, I
ahead.
think.
I'll second.
Oh, I will motion to approve.
And I will second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Amendment of the 2019 Governing Board meeting calendar. This comes under goal governance. Heather?
Just a couple of things that we discussed at our December meeting, which was a need to have opportunity for the Board of Trustees to discuss the workforce housing presentation given on November 28th. And so that will be Tuesday. That's a little confusing for us because we don't typically meet on Tuesday. So Tuesday, and it's at 7 p.m. This doesn't factor into the approval or not approval, but because it was at 7 p.m., we weren't going to offer dinner, if that's okay with you. And then the other change would be having a special meeting of the governing board on February 13th specifically to discuss negotiations, and that would be a closed session, and we would start at 6 p.m. And those are all items that we've discussed and I shared with you in our weekly update, but we need your approval of this.
So this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
She's just checking her.
Just making sure
Yeah.
that, already on the calendar.
February 13th is at 6 o'clock?
It is
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock, if everyone can make it at 6 o'clock.
Okay,
It can be any time we want it to be.
okay.
And the reason the 22nd meeting is on 7 o'clock is because we have our joint articulation meeting from 5:30 to 6:30.
It's 3 back-to-back meetings that day. Heather.
Just making time.
It's 3 back-to-back here.
So there's Facilities Master Planning Committee from 3:30 to 5:30, and then joint articulation from 5:30 to 6:30.
I don't mind representing joint articulation by myself.
I mean,
or
you might
Kathy.
need dinner, is all I'm saying, because we're not, like, maybe we could at least get Andrea a sandwich
We
or
can
something.
get it. They're happy to get Andrea.
I would say, Laverne, that's fine, except I have to be here anyway for the earlier meeting. So, yeah.
Okay.
So do we have a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Board passes 5-0, thank you.
Second quarter report on Williams uniform complaints, goal operations, and that is Josie.
Thank you. This is an information item for the board for the second quarter from October 1st through December 31st, 2018. There were no complaints, Williams complaints in the categories of the conditions of the facilities, teacher misassignments or vacancies, or instructional materials / textbooks. And so we'll be sending this report to the County Office of Education after the vote.
And future agenda items. Heather?
Are there future agenda items that you'd like to include on the agenda?
There might be one. If we could have a discussion between the board members about our committees that we serve on And how many board members serve on a committee, the conditions, like maybe alternating, different specifications. And just clarifying that, it seems that, we just go from new board members to new board members with the same old, when I think we could probably all discuss it.
Perfect. We'll put that on the February 6th board agenda.
Heather, I just actually have a question.
Sure.
Going back to the calendar. When is that going to be sent out to families?
So what we were asked, we talked to LSEA today, and there's one more step where they have to sign off because it's negotiated, so now it's approved. They'll come in and sign it, and then I was going to send it out to all families, so probably it would be early next week that I would send it
Okay.
to all families.
I just know that I've heard from families already looking at summer
Okay.
vacation plans and coming back. When are we starting again
Yeah.
seems to be a big topic
I
in the
was
community.
Thinking that next week I could send it out with that, and we're looking at opening the text feature of our school messenger, which is something that we would communicate with all
Oh,
families,
okay.
and I could do those two together. Hopefully
Nice.
people would be paying attention to those.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and the announcement of our closed session. The board is meeting in closed session to discuss the closed session items as listed on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the board regarding the closed session items? Seeing none, I adjourn the meeting to closed session. Yeah, here we go.
Well, it's 7:40.
7:40.
7:43, meeting adjourned.
Just trying to
So
say
shall we
quietly.
take